Shame to all Southeast politicians. Shame on you, all that parade yourself as big politicians from the Southeast geopolitical zones. In the last few years, you have cried and complained bitterly about the political marginalization of the Southeast. Going into the last presidential primaries in the second major political parties, many of you made very valid arguments that for the sake of justice, equity, and fairness, it should be the turn of the Southeast. The message resonated with a section of the political class so much that the Afenifere or Haneze Igbo and the Middle Belt Forum made very strong case for a presidency of the Southeast extraction. We expected our current crop of big politicians from the Southeast to get a buy-in of their colleagues, put in a very good show at primary elections and win at least a ticket of either PDP or APC or both. But alas, they failed woefully. None of them could garner more than 10% votes cast. Many even got into zero votes despite going into the primary election with a sizable number of delegates from the Southeast. From Dave Umahi, Orji Uzokalu, Rochas Okorocha, Ken Nnamani, Ogbonnaya Onu, Chimaroke Nnamani, and so on, they were beaten, outspent, and outsmarted by their colleagues from other sections of the country. They cried foul, but none cared to listen. They shouted marginalization, but none paid attention. Coincidentally, a presidential candidate, Peter Obi from the Southeast geopolitical zone, found favor among the Nigerian youths. The youths cutting across all tribes, Yoruba, Igbo, Hausas, Fulani, Ijaw, Edo, Isoko, Ishekiri, and so on, fell in love with the candidacy and message of Peter Obi of the Labour Party and made him a prominent contender in the 2023 presidential elections. Even for daring to carry the matter of Peter Obi on their heads, and despite being from diverse ethnic groups, the Nigerian youths have been blackmailed and called all sorts of names by the mesmerized supporters of APC and PDP. They call them IPOB, angry, abusive, bullies, and so on. One would have thought that the so-called big politicians from the Southeast who have all the while cried of marginalization would have rallied around Peter Obi, who, against all odds, have emerged as a third force. But rather than toe this line, it's becoming obvious that some of the biggest opposition to Peter Obi will come from his own political zones. Many big politicians from other geopolitical zones have rallied around their own candidates. Aminu Tambuwal had to step down for Atiku Abubakar to emerge as PDP presidential candidate. Governor of Lagos State, Sanwo-Olu, had urged the Yorubas to support Tinubu. Same with Governor Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State, and so on and so forth. Surprisingly to date, no big politician from the Southeast has thrown his weight behind the candidacy of Peter Obi. Some of them, like Dave Umahi, Chimaroke Nnamani, and so on, have come out openly to oppose the candidacy of Peter Obi. Not even IPOB, whose agitation is also anchored on marginalization, supports Peter Obi either overtly or covertly. In fact, the biggest opposition to Peter Obi is coming from Simon Ekpa of IPOB in Finland. Consequently, one can conclude that all the hues and cries about marginalization by the so-called big politicians and elites from the Southeast is about personal and selfish interest. It's all about their pockets and stomachs. These guys do not care one bit about the interest of either the youths or masses from the geopolitical zones. This is very shameful indeed. Anyway, it's a democracy and they are free to support whoever they deem fit. Henceforth, no one, including IPOB, should whine or cry about marginalization. Furthermore, whether they like it or not, the Nigerian youth, whose future is at stake, have taken their destinies in their hands. We will stand with Peter Obi and Ahmed Yusuf Dati and fight the behemoths of APC and PDP till the end. Enough is enough.